everybody. Good to meet you here on the first episode of R&J Talks. Once again, my name is Ricardo.
My name is Jose.
And what we're going to start off talking about first would be the last game of the season, which was Super Bowl 56. We got plenty of stuff that we would like to talk about. Jose, you want to take the lead on this first?
Let's go ahead and jump into the offensive side of things, since we both decided to talk about what we really enjoy, which is, in my case, offense and play calling, as well as offensive players in general. I typically tend to pay more attention to that, while you yourself being a former defensive player.
I love to pay attention to those key schemes that defenses use in the game. But let's get started. Let's go right ahead.
All right, cool. So some highlights from Super Bowl 56 as far as the players go. We got Joe Burrow and Matt Stafford, obviously. The surprise team in the Bengals coming through from the AFC. Just unprecedented. Nobody really expected that. Joe Burrow having 66.7% completion, 22 of 33. He threw the ball a lot, but not as much as Matt Stafford did. He was 26 of 40 for a 65% completion percentage. They both threw for almost 300 yards. Matt Stafford threw for 3 TDs, 2 picks, and Joe Burrow was 1 touchdown. He had a higher QBR, 100.9 QBR over Matt Stafford, 89.9.
Would you say it was the scores came at key positions in the game from both quarterbacks? That's what made most of the difference.
That's really what came down to it. On top of that, too, I mean, we saw Cooper Kupp throughout the season, right? And he had a phenomenal season. Arguably the best season for a wide receiver. And we'll get more into him later. We'll talk more about him later. But he had 8 receptions for this game, 92 yards, 11.5 average, and 22-yard longest reception, as well as 2 TDs, one of which was the game-winning touchdown for the LA Rams. Jamar Chase, obviously Rookie of the Year. We'll get more into him later too. He had 5 receptions, 89 yards, 17.8 average, and 46-yard longest reception. He didn't have any touchdowns though. So both of those touchdowns for the Bengals came down to T. Higgins, who had 4 receptions, 100 yards, and averaged 25 yards per reception. What was really interesting to me on the offensive side of the ball, though, was Joe Mixon's stats. Joe Mixon's stats. I mean, he had 15 carries, the running back for Cincinnati. He had 15 carries, 72 yards, and averaged 4.8 yards per carry
against that Rams tough defense with that front seven.
Yeah, so you have on that defensive side, you have Aaron Donald, obviously.
You have Leonard Floyd. You have Von Miller. You have Michael Brockers too. You pretty much have a pick your poison. Pretty much D lineman set up on there. Linebacker might be their weak position, but the front 4 does a great job of preventing the O-line from getting further. But Mixon, he surprised me too. He was able to break through and break some tackles while getting through it.
And it's not like he was running through these, as you'd called it in the past, middle school sized holes in the defensive line. No. Like, he was actually pushing through like dime sized holes, man. I mean, he was powering through like any really professional running back would, right? It doesn't get any better than that. And the fact that he was averaging halfway to a first down almost every single play, it surprises me in the second half that they didn't run it more.
We can get more into that later, but questionable play calling from Cincinnati's coach. Absolutely, I do agree with you on that, because they seem more balanced in the first half when they were running the ball, and once they get through it, like, they kept their drives going, or at least gave them some more room to operate and kept their defense off the field, which also did a good job. But we'll get on that later. And
we'll talk a little bit more on about that on the defensive side of things. But you had T. Higgins, who was a key player in the game as far as receptions go. He scored 2 of the touchdowns, one of which was thrown by Joe Mixon. Again,
trick play.
A fantastic trick play. The guy threw a beautiful pass in the end zone, a nice lob. It was a very mature throw, I would say. You know, he didn't just bullet pass it right over his shoulder. I mean, he actually got it over the defender that was on him, as well as
He better. The guy's T. Higgins 6'5", so I'll try to make sure that nobody else gets it.
Yeah, Jesus. I mean, he had the height of Calvin Johnson practically.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, who was 6'6", if I remember correctly, like 6'5", 6'6".
I think they were the same height. I can look that up right now, but you can.
Yeah. Okay, so just on to key moments from from both of the teams. One of which is the Odell touchdown.
Yeah.
Okay, on the Rams side.
Mm-hmm.
So the Odell TD, that was the first TD of the game. First quarter on 3rd and 3, even. It was an over-the-shoulder grab against man coverage from Mike Hilton. Now, Mike Hilton was pretty good throughout the year. I mean, his stats were... he wasn't a superstar player, but he did play fairly well.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's not a big height advantage. I decided to put this down. Odell is 5'11", and Mike Hilton's 5'9". So it's not a significant height advantage for Odell Beckham, but the fact that he was able to make a grab like that is pretty much a mature grab from a receiver like him. So
it assured something that we all knew, unless you're Browns fans, that Odell is still a great receiver.
Yeah.
And it just takes a good quarterback to give him the opportunity to catch those balls. It was a well-placed 50-50 ball by Stafford too. It wasn't an incomplete it wasn't a horrible pass. It helped Odell, but it was up to Odell to make that pass. So that's honestly what I agree with you. That's what it came down to. And Odell made the better play. And Hilton was a good corner. It wasn't like Eli Apple, who got burnt a lot in this game, which I will get into later.
Yeah, Eli Apple, and Jalen Ramsey.
Yep.
Yeah, they both were just getting burned all over the place. But it's just it's crazy. It was crazy to see some of those top tier defensive players just getting burnt by these top tier receivers. So
absolutely,
Odell's moved has made some big leaps in his career, character wise and player wise, since he left New York. So, and another moment on moving on to the Bengals side of the ball. One moment that I wanted to touch on in particular was Joe Mixon running in the second quarter on 1st and 10, gains a first down and change while stiff arming a safety. Yeah. So again, the guy was running pretty well for the most part. So it's just it's really surprising to me that they didn't utilize him as much in the second half, because they are a big play team. They've been a big play team throughout the entire season, and they just ran vertical offenses. Not a vertical offense, but they started running a lot of go routes very often. They just wanted to get the big yardage, the yard gain.
Mm-hmm.
So it was interesting to see their offensive play calling to be shifting towards more of a run first then pass, run first then pass. It seemed to be an area of growth for Cincinnati in the Super Bowl.
No, for sure.
Also, the mix and pass to Higgins for the TD. Burrow tosses it back to Mixon, and
standard halfback pass with the trick play.
Right.
Yeah, toss it to the running back, and then he passes it off.
It was a little hop toss too. Yeah, he skipped it a little bit. He had to get over everybody. So
yeah. By the way, it confirmed Calvin Johnson is taller by an inch, but he's 6'5". T. Higgins 6'4".
6'4".
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And of course, Higgins' second TD in the third quarter, 75. It was a 75-yard touchdown against Ramsey in man coverage. This was the face mask call, the missed face mask call. I mean, what do you think? Do you think he should have called that?
Oh, it was a definitely missed face mask call by the referee. It was just and this was kind of annoying later in the game, is that it felt like the referees were trying to compensate for missing that blatant face mask, because, man, you saw it as the play was going on. You just saw Ramsey's head like snatch to the other side, and then once you see the replay, like, it was just, other than the Hail Mary in Seattle with Green Bay, I don't think I've ever seen a worse call by the referees.
Or lack of a call.
Yeah.
That, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And going back to the Rams side of the ball, the Cooper Kupp touchdown reception, the game-winning TD grab against man coverage from Eli Apple. Again, he got burnt, man, and it looked like a go route with a quick turn, with just a quick turnaround to adjust. And we've seen Jamar Chase do this plenty of times throughout the season. So it was, and this is what Cooper Kupp has been throughout the entire season. Mm-hmm. He reads defenses so well, and he's able to make adjustments from there. Yeah, and you saw this too. With Cooper Kupp's reception in the end zone. So in the second quarter, he ran just a small corner route for their second LA TD right after Odell's.
Absolutely.
And when he ran that corner route, he found that pocket where no defender was found at all. And and the defenders were doing very well at covering their own zones. He found the opening.
It was a great play call by Sean McVay too, to get Matt Stafford out to the rollout as well for that TD by Cooper Kupp. Because earlier in the game, you saw in the first half, you saw Stafford do that same rollout, and he just threw it deep and got intercepted by just Jesse Bates.
Yeah,
it was just a great play call at that time by McVay to not shy away from going away for that play call.
Definitely, man. Well, that's my take on the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, the quarterbacks didn't have a very, superstar game. They didn't have the best game of their season.
Yeah.
That definitely belonged to some of the other offensive players. But so far, I'm excited to see what they do next year.
Absolutely.
Joe Burrow especially. I mean, he's just been phenomenal. He's taken that team far further than any other quarterback ever could for that team, quite frankly. So that's my take. So let's go ahead and move on to the defensive side.
All right. So specifically for defense, yes, I know the interesting part of that fans pay attention to the game too.
Yeah, exactly.
But defense wins championships, and it hasn't changed at all for this championship as well. So let's get right down into it.
And I remember you were mentioning that this is the hardest era to be playing defense in the NFL.
No, absolutely. With the rule changes and the league era switching over to a passing game, where back in the day you could physically tackle people in coverage and they wouldn't call a flag on you. Now you so much as looks like you're holding someone, they'll call the flag on you. So yeah, let's get right down to the nitty gritty about it. All right, so I'm going to start with the Bengals defense. Yeah. As far as what they were doing, because how they were stopping the Rams specifically throughout the game. Now, what the Bengals were doing is that they were specifically doing a 4-man pressure. Now, to all you novices of the game, what that means is that on the line, they have 4 main guys going after the quarterback. So what they would do is that they would just pass rush the quarterback, try to conceal a pocket. And that's the cool thing about Cincinnati is that they get to the quarterback slowly. I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but the way it works is that they get in good positions, so that way if the coverage team holds their end, they're able to get sacked to the quarterback. Key player on this team was Hutchinson. He started off the game with an incredible play on third down. I'm sorry, Henderson. Henderson on 3rd and 17 has a chance to pass rush, and he's able to sack Stafford right at the beginning of the game to set the tone for it. Now, they would switch between zone and man coverage, so I really can't say like they just stuck with one system specifically. But most of the game, it would be man coverage and then zone throughout the game. Now, let's go down to the specifics at the end of the game. What made the difference in that game-winning touchdown drive?
Right. Yeah.
So Rams focus on Cooper Kupp a lot. What ended up happening is that they try to have the man coverage on them and try to do double coverage, but the difference is they didn't press Kupp. So that defense does not work.
And that was in the second half, right?
That was in the second half.
They were playing very well in the first half.
Yeah, that was in the second half. They just got a little, I wouldn't say choky, but I feel like they tried to play it safe.
Yeah.
But in order for a double man coverage to work, you have to press the receiver, especially Kupp, who's made a living killing people route running. You got to throw off that timing between him and Stafford. And there was just they just got beat on that final drive. The McVay was able to find an answer to their specific defense.
Yeah.
So what he would do is that they would have them run specific in routes. And because the corner was off of Kupp did a great job of reading the defense. When he saw the safety outside, he went inside. When he saw the safety inside, he would go outside.
Right.
And then at the end of the game with that fade route, he saw there was no safety in him, so he just went outside, trusted Stafford to make the throw, and it went to perfection. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
So, now the surprise of the game was the Bengals being ahead specifically. So let me say specifically what the Rams did. They ran their traditional 4-man front, and they would also run a deep coverage with their safeties.
Right.
Now, everybody knew what the battle would be for the game, and what ended up deciding the game as well: offensive line versus defensive line.
Right.
So, what the Cincinnati Bengals did a good job doing against the Rams' vaunted defense against Aaron Donald was creating a side. The linemen shifted to the right side. So you have a line set up straight. What you can also set up a line to where it forms a wall either to the right or to the left. So what they did in order to triple team Donald, because let's be honest, that's what you got to do with Aaron Donald. The guy's a bona fide Hall of Famer.
Yeah, pretty much.
They shifted their line to whichever side Donald was, so that way they had at least the center to help the guard. So that way there was enough protection on that side. Now, what changed the game, because they had Donald and Von Miller at the same separated, what the Rams decided to do, they put Miller and Donald on the same side.
Yeah.
On the same, so to people at home, so if you stick your fingers out, there's four fingers. They moved Aaron and Donald to the left two sides of the finger, so that way the old lineman was constantly focused on that. And what they did is that they would run a stunt. What a stunt is that the inside D lineman goes outside and the outside lineman goes inside.
Right.
They would run that on the backside, so that way they would have a free pass rushers to get to Joe Burrow. And that's how they were able to change the game, honestly.
Yeah.
So with the second half, after Higgins scored the 75-yard touchdown, and then Matt Stafford throws the interception, Cincinnati has a chance to go up a lot in the middle of the game.
Yeah.
They have a chance to break the game wide open, but it was stopped by a key defensive play of the game by Donald. He did a lot of these. So what ended up happening is that it was they're close to the goal line. It became second. Excuse me. Hang on. Give me 1 second. Just making sure. Okay, yeah. So it was 3rd and 3 at the Los Angeles 11. So could try to run it, get it first and goal, see how it goes. Donald really made the play of the game right here. He physically drove the guard back, and because the Rams coverage had more people in coverage than they do blitzing, T. Higgins was covered, Jamar Chase was covered, and Donald just swallowed up the old lineman and was able to hold on to him and sack him. That sack changed everything.
And didn't they go back to the offensive line? That is, didn't the offensive line go back to just a normal four-person?
I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
A normal 5-man front. So,
5-man front, yeah.
So what you do when your team isn't as good as in pass coverage, you have a tight end set up on one side and you have a running back set up on the other side. They can be in shotgun. Right. So what these two guys do is that they chip the defenders on the middle line to prevent them a little bit. It can stop them from half a second, but in the NFL, that's a lot of time.
And chipping them is basically just containing them from infiltrating the pocket.
So a chip is you pretty much hit and go.
Yeah.
You hit and go.
Right.
That small hit, it's supposed to help the old lineman recover and able to get the block on the defender.
In other words, it stuns them, so that way they
yes, exactly.
They have to spend more time attempting to get into the pocket.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the Bengals were able to shift their old linemen into what I said, the slanted protection to the right or to the left.
Yeah.
And they also had a tight end and running back chip off the edge. So that's what really helped them get the lead. Donald got the sack when they were running that 5-man protection.
Exactly.
So you leave Donald one-on-one, he'll be able to burn you all day long. And Cincinnati, after they got that field goal, did not score the rest of the game.
And that's what killed them.
The Rams got, I believe it was 6 more sacks. After that, they have a total Super Bowl record 7 sacks. Actually, it was tied because Staubach got sacked more against the steel curtain back in the day.
Yeah, and throughout the regular season, it's useful to mention that Joe Burrow was sacked 9 times in one game. So much so that the name on his jersey came off completely.
Yeah, the emblem on the back of his jersey.
Exactly.
Was what stopped it. Now, they, like you said, Jose, they did this the O-line did this 5-man protection front, and that's literally what stopped them from the end of the game. They did a nice route to Jamar Chase at the beginning of the drive, to a little comeback route, and then Ramsey again got burnt, missed the tackle, and ended up being like a 20-yard gain.
Right.
And then the play of the game by Donald is it's going back to their change strategically on defense. They would run stunts, but they left Donald one-on-one on a 5-man protection front, and you got to question the play calling here by the coach Zach Taylor. If they switch from short intermediate passing and switching their protection plan, their protection from the O-line front.
Yeah. So
you got to question why he didn't adjust, because the Rams defense clearly adjusted to what the Bengals were doing, and they just hoped Joe Burrow could get rid of the ball quick.
And all day, the entire year, the Rams team as a whole are a second half team. They were a second half team the entire season.
Yeah.
Right? And the previous season.
Absolutely.
As long as McVay has been the head coach, they've been a second half team. Okay, and that's not a testament to their skill. That's not me degrading their skill.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how it's been. They definitely make adjustments accordingly. So that's why I'm sitting here both on the offensive and defensive sides, asking myself what was the reasoning for Zach Taylor to not make these adjustments or make adjustments, but adjustments that hurt them in the long run.
The Rams, they adjusted on their D-line front. I'm surprised they didn't try to go back running the ball, which is a key proven testament to stop the pass rush.
Right.
When you run the ball or throw screen passes, because it gets those D-linemen tired. They have to run all over the place, and then once in a while run a deep pass. But it looks like from what we saw, like from what I could see, it looks like he was trying to do deep passing, which Cincinnati is a big offensive play team, but they just got impatient at the wrong time.
They did,
and it cost them the championship.
They did, man. Yeah, it's a shame, but that's not to say that they aren't going to do something next year. So, looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing what the Rams do next year, also.
If I'm the Bengals, you just draft O-line and some stuff on defense. I don't want to draft another skill receiver, running back, anything. Just draft O-line.
Dude, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
My goodness. I mean, we can say that about your Cardinals also.
Oh, yeah. No, let's not get started with that. Oh, yeah. We can talk about that in a later episode.
All right, guys. That's the end of this segment, and we'll be right back for more. So stay tuned.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to R&J Talks. So we just finished talking about the Super Bowl. Now we're going to go ahead and get started with the NFL honors. So I'll go ahead and get started. So I'm going to talk about the NFL MVP. I'm going to talk about the Coach of the Year, and I'm going to talk about the NFL Comeback Player of the Year. Jose, who are you going to talk about today?
I'm going to be talking about Rookie of the Year, Jamar Chase, Defensive Player of the Year, TJ Watt, and the Offensive Player of the Year in Cooper Kupp. So we got a lot to cover.
And if we have some time, we'll get into Rookie Defensive Player of the Year, Micah Parsons as well. But we'll get right to it. So I'll go ahead and talk about Aaron Rodgers. All right, man. So I gotta be honest with you. It really seemed more of an MVP award that felt like, well, you know what? He was the most consistent throughout the whole year. Like, let's just give it to him.
Right.
If we were gonna go with the player who had the best season, honestly, it would have to be Cooper Kupp, because he had a triple crown season that hasn't been done since Steve Smith. To the people who don't know, a triple crown receiver is someone who leads the league in yards, catches, and touchdown catches.
Right.
So that's incredible all in by itself. He almost broke, I believe it was Calvin Johnson's record. I don't remember if he absolutely closed it. You could confirm that for me.
Yeah, we'll get a little more into that later. But as far as the MVP goes, he won his 4th MVP award, and Aaron Rodgers is a phenomenal player. We've seen that before. But what do you think, Ricardo?
I honestly, he had a better year last season. That was like outright won by him.
Yeah, definitely.
This season, it just felt kind of off. Like it was between him and Brady, and then Jonathan Taylor got into it late in the run.
Yeah, he did.
But I would say
ultimately it was between Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady.
It was between the two of them, and I got to be honest, like nothing based on like his previous seasons, nothing jumps out at me as far as like specific touchdowns in the season. Obviously, winning has something to do with it. So the Packers ended up winning a fair amount this past season, but I don't agree with it. If I'm being honest with you, I don't agree with him being Rodgers. Now, people might say that's crazy for me to say, but if I was go as the best player who had the best season this year, it would have to be Cooper Kupp. If I'm being honest,
Cooper Kupp as the MVP.
And we all know, fortunately, the MVP is only reserved for running backs and quarterbacks, except for Lawrence Taylor.
Predominantly, yeah. And if you're just such a dominant defensive player like Lawrence Taylor, then it's an unquestionable decision. But it's normally crowned on a quarterback or a running back's head because they're the ones that are making the biggest plays. They're the ones that are scoring the points. So yeah, at the end of the day, it does make sense. But
really quickly, let me just bring up the differentiations between this year and last year. Last year, he threw 4,299 passing yards.
Right.
He threw 48 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Sounds like an all-time year. Mm-hmm. And then this year, he threw 4,115 yards. And then he threw 37 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. Now, one of my big gripes about Rodgers is that sometimes it feels like he's trying his best to get the best stats as opposed to trying to make the right play.
Trying to put the numbers up.
Yeah. So that's what I have to say so far about NFL MVP. You guys can hate me for it. I don't care, but that's honestly how I look at it. And I honestly feel it could have gone to anybody else.
It's crazy, man, that just yesterday they signed him to a 4-year deal. $50 million a year.
We'll hold back now because he sent a tweet that the details specific of the deal aren't set out yet. So we'll see when he officially posts what it is. But he seemed very sensitive. He was very sensitive about that on Twitter. Him and Pat McAfee, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
All right, so let me go really quickly as far as the coach of the year. This one's a no-brainer, dude. I don't even have to get too much into stats, but
and that was Mike Vrabel.
Yes, it was.
Right.
So it was Mike Vrabel for the Tennessee Titans. They lost Derrick Henry in the middle of the season, which could have been a season-ending injury, and I didn't hear one person, as far as when it comes to like talk shows and whatnot, that did not say that did say that the Titans are going to make a playoff run this year. They're going to be the number 1 seed in the AFC.
Right.
And it's all done to Mike Vrabel, who is the only Belichick disciple to have a successful coaching career, but it doesn't really count because he was just a player. He wasn't a coach from Belichick. But when you lose Derrick Henry, dude, who was on a roll to maybe break the NFL rushing record all year,
and his rushing numbers were so good that weeks on end after he had to step out for a while, he was still leading the league in rushing yards, and then for weeks on end.
He was top 5. He was still top 5 at closer to the end of the year, man. It was ridiculous.
It's just insane. It is insane.
And you can say what you want about the defense because it's Vrabel's calling card. Yes, it was a struggle for them this year.
Yeah.
And it ended up costing them most of the game in their playoff loss. But I will say this: they did not lose their identity through that struggle. And you got to credit that to the coach. We all know that there's coaches out there who have no idea what they're doing. I don't want to get into this rant because otherwise we're going to run out of time. But there's some coaches who lose a star wide receiver and just decide that the season's over.
They disintegrate.
Make no adjustments whatsoever. Make no adjustments to help the quarterback, to help the team. No. And
now, who have you seen do that?
If I were to, it's the boy from Arizona, the young blood, the next Sean McVay, Cliff Kingsbury, who does not know what he can do when a player goes down.
Right.
Great head coach who had a losing record in college, and for some reason that qualifies him to be an NFL head coach. No NFL experience.
Obviously.
But that's quick to talk about Mike Vrabel. He's doing a hell of a job in Tennessee, and the one thing that I wish they could change is quarterback Ryan Tannehill, but there's no options up to this point. So when the situation comes, if they get a quarterback, there's a chance that they could make it to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and our next segment is about those very quarterback prospects. So we'll talk about it.
Absolutely.
We'll get into it.
All right, so comeback player of the year. To me, it's a no-brainer. Now, I'll be fair to Nick Bosa because the man tore his knee up, and he still got 15 sacks.
Yeah.
He is a solid number 2. Honestly, it's probably 1A and 1B because as an NFL D lineman, to make that kind of recovery that quickly, dude, it's insane. Right. It is insane. Mm-hmm. But Joey Burrow here, he had a run for the ages with a franchise that has known nothing but losing after the 80s when Montana ripped their souls out of their hearts for not 1 but 2 Super Bowls. So
they didn't have a playoff win in 30 plus years.
Yeah.
They had not been to a Super Bowl since 1988.
Yep.
And you can't blame the losses. You can't blame the losses entirely on them. They were playing against Joe Montana and those killer 49ers.
It's not their fault that they ran into historic quarterback and offense.
At the time, the greatest of all time.
At the time, the GOAT.
Yeah, at the time, the GOAT. Now, yes, we can argue it all day, but We'll talk about
say that for a minute.
We'll talk about that at some point in the future. But going back to this, he did a phenomenal job, man. I mean, the first playoff win, and they go to the Super Bowl, their first Super Bowl since 1988.
Man got sacked 77 times this year. That's including the playoffs. So just to give you guys some impressive about this stats, he got sacked so many times, but his completion percentage was still 70%. That's incredible. That is incredible for a quarterback getting taken down that much amount of times and doing that. Now, he threw for 4,611 yards. He threw for 34 touchdown passes. One part I'm not too keen on is the interceptions. You know me, I prefer little interceptions as possible.
But he's a young QB.
Yes,
he has time.
It's a second year. It's a second year, so he can definitely lower that down. But it's incredible. Some people made the argument after the playoff successes that Joe Burrow should have been the MVP as opposed to Aaron Rodgers. But I understand regular season, like the Bengals were an iffy team, and it wasn't until they beat the Chiefs in Week 14. So
isn't that crazy that he was able to make a run that well, make a name that big for himself to the point where he was in MVP contention against Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. I mean,
two all-timers.
Two all-timers. I mean, two future Hall of Famers. First ballot Hall of Famers. It's incredible what Joe Cool II has been able to do. So
don't let my dad hear you say that, man.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I said Joe Cool II. Joe Cool II. We'll say that. Joe Cool Jr.
Yeah. Now, like I said, I'm fair to Nick Bosa. He had an incredible run, but Joey Burrow was the story of the year. So I'm done with who I was talk about the NFL honors. So you go ahead, man.
All right. So going straight into another offensive player for the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow was definitely in the spotlight, but we definitely need to give Jamar Chase the respect that he deserves, man. Offensive Rookie of the Year. It's really no question, man. Just his stats alone in the regular season: 81 receptions, 1,455 yards. He averaged 18 yards per reception, 13 TDs. He beat Randy Moss's best rookie season record. Randy Moss's record was 69 receptions, 1,313 yards, and 17 TDs. I mean, the kid's great, really. And it helps that Cincinnati was such a big play team, right? They love to run a lot of go routes. They love to run a whole lot of plays that got them the yards, that got them down the field in a very short amount of time. That's just the kind of offensive plays. Those are the kinds of offensive plays that they were making. Some of my favorite things that I really liked about Jamar Chase, his adjustments to the pass. Okay, when you have somebody like Joe Burrow, who is constantly under pressure every single play, every single snap, because of that offensive line, because that offensive line was always put in such a dire situation, they were just in trouble, and they put Joe Burrow in trouble. He wasn't able to make the most accurate passes all the time.
Yeah.
We were on the phone about a week ago, and we were talking about this. One of the things that you mentioned was, yes, he was under pressure a lot of the time, and that's the reason why a lot of his passes were not as accurate as they could be. He has a strong arm, but he doesn't have a bazooka like Patrick Mahomes does. All right. But then again, he's not protected like Patrick Mahomes is. Snap after snap after snap. So his adjustments to the pass definitely added to Joe Burrow's stats as well as Jamar Chase's stats. So his adjustments to the pass specifically, mainly, and you saw this a lot throughout the season, he cuts in front of the cornerback in order to catch that short pass or catch that long pass. So say and he did this a lot in LSU too, when the two were playing together. By the way, they were teammates in LSU. For those of you that don't know, Louisiana State, they won a national championship together.
Had arguably the best college offensive season of all time. Go ahead, man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's the fact that they were able to play once again on the same team, the chemistry, and obviously the chemistry stuck because they were both able to put up these fantastic numbers. So we saw this a lot at LSU, and we saw this obviously this past season in Cincinnati, where Chase would run these really fast go routes. He would beat corners easily. Right? A lot of these cornerbacks that he was playing, he would beat them very easily. And when he would get in front of them, he realized that the pass that was being thrown by Joe Burrow was short. Okay? So what he would do is, as he's running down and he saw that the ball was not going to reach him and it would be a potential interception, he would cut back. He would stop his momentum, get right behind the cornerback, catch him off guard, so that way he's stuck trying to reach behind him for a receiver that's immediately behind him, it seems like, and then catch the ball from there.
We saw that happen too in the regular season game against the Chiefs. I think it was 3rd and 20, if I remember correctly, where Burrow and Chase did that exact same pass, and it was one-on-one, and Chase just snagged it, doing exactly what you just told me right now.
Exactly.
It was incredible.
And we saw this in Week 7 at Baltimore when this is a short pass, but Week 7 at Baltimore, he runs a slant route and cuts to the inside.
Just athleticism right there.
Oh man, yeah, he's
incredible speed.
The kid's quick. Quick. His route running is pretty crisp. It's not like Justin Jefferson. It's not like Justin Jefferson where it's not a crisp route like that, or Larry Fitzgerald in his prime. Those kinds of routes. But he was still
good enough.
It's good enough. Yeah. It's fantastic for a rookie.
Yeah.
For a rookie in the professional league. So he runs a slant route. He cuts to the inside after putting some leverage on Marlon Humphrey.
To give some perspective, that's one of the top corners in the game right now.
Yeah,
for the
one
Raiders.
of the top cornerbacks in the game. Marlon Humphrey for a touchdown run after breaking like 3 tackles.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, man! I can't talk that much more about him. I can't say.
We could talk about the whole segment about him. But
Exactly.
We got to move on.
Yeah. So next is Defensive Player of the Year. Complete monster in Pittsburgh, T.J. Watt, linebacker. You could call him an edge rusher, but he's a linebacker for what reason? You mentioned that.
It's so pretty much it's statistics wise, not statistics. I'm so sorry. Defense schemes is what it is. So to the people at home who don't know, just make it simple. So defenses run mainly these 2 schemes in the NFL. They've adjusted and added other stuff, but I won't bore you with that. I'll keep it simple. So usually they have 4 down linemen on the defense, and then they have 3 linebackers behind them. That scheme is called a 4-3. Now, what Pittsburgh likes to do, and this is the reason why T.J. Watt is labeled as a linebacker, quote unquote, they run a 3-4 defense. So what that is that 3 down linemen and 4 linebackers on the outs behind them. So what you can do in a 3-4 is that you set up your outside linebacker, i.e. T.J. Watt, at the edge, so that way they have a clear shot for the quarterback, or they set the edge. So that's why T.J. labeled as a linebacker, but that scheme, I honestly think he could have been a DN as well. Like, he's such a monster. It's ridiculous.
He ended the season in 15 games. He ended the season with 64 total tackles, 48 of those being solo tackles, 16 of those being assisted tackles, and he sacked quarterbacks 22 and a half times in one season. He tied Michael Strahan, who's a Hall of Famer, by the way. Michael Strahan's record for sacks in one season.
I was really rooting for him, man, to get that last one in the final regular season.
All he needed was half a sack.
That's it.
If he didn't miss that one game throughout the season, he probably would have gotten half. He would have beaten it. He would have beaten that record. But some of my favorite things that I really liked seeing from T.J. Watt was his explosiveness off the line. His first step is an entire yard. He's completely fast, just right off the back foot. He bends the edge, as you call it. Bends the edge and runs short paths into the pocket. It's a 45-degree angle as opposed to just a wide 90-degree, right? Or just a very loose curve, right?
For the people at home, really quickly, what we mean bend the edge in a 45-degree angle is that when you're standing up, that's set up as a 90-degree. As a pass rusher, someone going after the quarterback, it's quicker to actually get to the quarterback if you slant your body as a 45-degree angle. That's where the term bend the edge comes from. All right, go ahead, man. Just want to explain that really quickly.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Especially for those people that are just getting into us, we don't want to use shop talk throughout the entire thing. We want to explain what exactly it is we mean. So, but my very last thing is his motor. In other words, his perseverance against O-linemen. He's not a perfect defender by any means. He doesn't always crack the offensive line or just power through the offensive line every single play. But man, the guy's just persistent. He's just persistent. He does not, his mind doesn't shut off until that clock reaches 0:00. He's always on. He is completely on the entire time. And you see this in Week 14 against Tennessee. Week 14, keep that in mind. Week 14, he's still playing like this. Third and goal, TJ Watt just powers through 2 tackles on the edge and reaches to Tannehill for the sack. His reach is ridiculous. His arms are super long. If you get the chance, anybody that hasn't seen any of TJ Watt's highlights, I highly recommend that you do. His reach alone, his arm length alone, just sets him apart from a lot of the other defenders in the league right now.
We talked about it too really quickly. There's a chance he might be better than his brother, but only time will tell, and especially injuries too.
Yeah, we'll see.
It looks like it. We'll see how he does.
He's a few years in, and he's on a better team than what J.J. Watt was on when he first started out. So J.J. Watt started off with the Houston Texans. For those of you that don't know, they're a pretty bad team.
Garbage.
It's a pretty garbage team.
Garbage franchise.
It's fair to say that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just struggling. They've been struggling for a very long time.
Yeah.
But before we run out of time, my personal favorite player from this past year, Offensive Player of the Year, Cooper Kupp as a wide receiver. The guy, his IQ is just off the charts. He won the Triple Crown as Ricardo mentioned earlier. He was the first to do it since Steve Smith Sr. in 2005, who also tied receptions that year with Larry Fitzgerald. Mm-hmm. Yeah, your man.
Yep, a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, he tied the receptions with Larry Fitzgerald, which sets him apart, which is what sets Cooper Kupp apart from him. He blew the stats out of the water. Yeah. He didn't tie with anybody. Yeah. So even though he was the first to do it since Steve Smith didn't do it entirely. He didn't wipe the board like Cooper Kupp did. Yeah. 145 receptions, 1,947 receiving yards, 16 TDs, Super Bowl champ, Super Bowl MVP, and 17 yards away from tying Calvin Megatron Johnson's 1,964 yard season in 2012. My favorite things that I love seeing from him is just his defensive reading, man. It's unprecedented. He's versatile also, and he's just very unselfish with the ball. You know, he lines up as a wide receiver, a tight end, and a slot receiver. Okay, and we're running out of time, so for right now, I'm gonna post a picture of what that coverage looks like and what that lineup looks like. But in the Cardinals Week 14 game, where Kupp puts outside leverage on his cornerback to basically telegraph the safety. So if there's a deep safety, Cooper Kupp has his eye on him, and he's covered man on man because everybody knows that he's the best receiver on the Rams team, right, on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
So when Cooper Kupp is running this route and he's thinking about whether to cut to the outside or the inside, he's looking at the safety, the deep safety, and he's looking to see where his hips turn. As soon as he sees where his hips turn, since he shifted to the left, the safety shifted to the left, Cooper Kupp shifted to the right. And he goes the opposite direction. He's so reactionary, and that's what makes his route running so good, is he's very reactionary to what the defense is giving him. And that's part of his game. That's part of the reason why he's just so hard to defend, and he's so good at catching the ball. He delayed his cut inside in order to let a zone play form, so that way he can find the hole and make the catch.
That's high football IQ, man, and that makes the difference between good receivers and great ones, because nobody looks at Kupp and thinks he's an athlete, dude. Like,
no, they don't.
They don't think he's the most athletic.
He might as well be Larry Bird in the league.
Exactly. He's just very skilled and precise, and is excellent at reading defense. It's how you laid it out just now. It explains the difference between him and other receivers, dude.
Yeah, and he's the last comment I will say about him is he's a great blocker.
Oh, underrated part of the game.
Yeah, the Rams normally run a zone running offense. The fact that he can line up as a running back partially and make good blocks for the running back, so that way they have space to run through the offensive line as well as the defensive line, just sets him apart from any other receiver in the league, because he's so versatile. He can line up on the line and have those multiple roles, take on those multiple responsibilities, so that way everybody else is able to play the game and they're able to win.
No, absolutely.
So,
all right, guys, we're gonna have to cut it off here, but yeah, we will meet you at the final segment.
Yeah, Thanks. Thank you very much. Yep. Welcome back to the show, everybody. And now we're going to get into our favorite segment, one that Ricardo has been dying to talk about for all the right reasons.
All right.
These are the NFL quarterback prospects for 2022. Take it away, Ricardo.
All right. As you know, I've been dying to talk about this, guys. So, let me just explain it pretty simple to you guys. If you're a fan of an NFL team that does not have a franchise quarterback or an ideal quarterback situation for it, I hate to break it to you, you're going to have to wait another year because these guys are straight up awful. And I am not exaggerating. So let me start off specifically with the names of these bums. So it is Kenny Pickett, Desmond Ritter, Matt Corral, and Malik Willis. So I'll start off with Pickett, the number one supposed quarterback prospect for this year's draft. Plays out of Pittsburgh. Okay, so there's only one guy I've known to play out of Pittsburgh and lead a Hall of Fame career, and that's my man, Larry Legend, number 11.
Yes, sir.
But watching Pickett play, he at best to me seems a backup QB. At best.
And he's the number one prospect.
And he's the number one prospect. He has the stats. Now, he's been at Pitt for 4 years. This is his first positive stats that he's had with them. So they look great. It's 4,319 passing yards, 67 completion percentage, 42 touchdowns, just 7 interceptions.
Right.
But the guy, the way the NFL works is that you have to be a great pocket passer. Now, what that means to the average person who's unaware of that. So when an O-line blocks, the idea is to form a pocket. If you guys just put both of your hands together and separate them and form into the shape of a U, that's what I mean by pocket. So quarterbacks, they need to be inside that pocket.
They need to live there.
Yes.
Yeah. Because
here's why. I know you said, well, Ricardo, why don't you try like athletic quarterbacks and whatnot? Well, here's why.
Right.
Because you have absolute monsters on the defensive end who run insanely quick.
In the professional league, I mean, just look at Jordan Davis out of Georgia this past weekend.
You took the words right out of my mouth, man. The man is 330 pounds.
I think just over 350. Is he not?
I thought
I'll look that up.
I'll
look that up.
Point is, guys, you have these monsters I know he's 6'8", who was 6'8", 6'5", over 300 pounds. They run extremely fast. If you guys take the chance to watch at 40-yard dashes by NFL D linemen, please take a look at them so you can take a look as far as how quick they are. That's why with Kenny Pickett, I don't trust him because he plays too loose for the game. It's not being a pocket passer, which you need in this game's league. I don't care how athletic you are. We can look at Mahomes. We can look at Herbert. We can look at Lamar Jackson. Their success to wins comes from passing it inside the pocket.
So in other words, doing what they're getting paid to do, and that's pass. Yes, that you can run it all you want, but you have a running back for that. You have a halfback and you have a fullback to take on those responsibilities. Now, and you don't want to run it as a quarterback. You don't want to step out of the pocket. Why? Because you have people that are going to be coming into the league like Jordan Davis, who's at 341 pounds, 6'6", and runs a 40-yard dash of 4.78 seconds. That means running 40 yards in 4.78 seconds.
If you guys want to take your shot and run your own 40-yard dash, be my guest so you guys can see exactly how hard that is. Point of reference, I'm 5'10", I was 210 pounds, I was slow. My 40 time was a 4.8. And that was in my physical prime as an athlete.
Now imagine carrying this kind of weight around and having that defensive lineman run at you.
Yeah.
In the professional league.
Yeah. So
you can't step out of the pocket. You need to let your offensive line protect you.
You're gonna get hurt. You're gonna get hurt, and you need to learn how to pass within the pocket.
Right.
One of the best players to learn that in his career was the undrafted guy out of Kurt Warner. He had to learn to stay in the pocket and wait till the last minute to throw the ball accurate down the field. Now, Pickett, his highlights, his receivers are all wide open. Now, yes, you have to throw it to the wide open guy, but in the NFL, that doesn't happen that often. You're going to have to zip that ball in there with the defender in their face, less than a yard of separation of coverage. What that means, guys, is that they're going to have to throw the ball when a defender's right next to him, like physically right next to him. And I don't think this guy can do that. He has a strong arm, but I just don't see him being that impressive. And
a lot of his big, I need to mention too, a lot of his big plays that he's had throughout this past college season, he wasn't playing any really. He wasn't playing against any vaunted defense. I mean, one of the games he played against Clemson, but who was in the top 10 this past year.
This is probably their worst defense they've had in 6 years.
Right.
If I'm being honest, based on the years that they went to the national championship.
And he put up numbers against Virginia Tech, University of Miami, Virginia, and North Carolina. Those are the people that he put up a lot of these big stats against. Wake Forest also. Now, Wake Forest was ranked at one point in time, but that was mostly their offense, was it not?
Yes, it was.
It was because of their offense.
Yes, it was. It was their offense.
So.
Okay. So.
Moving on.
Yeah. Okay. So now we have. This is my favorite, guys, because it happens every year. They find a quarterback who can throw it 75 yards or 80 yards down the field standing up. So that automatically transfers into being an incredible player in the NFL, right? No, wrong. It doesn't matter how strong you throw the ball. It just matters if you can throw it correctly and have the right touch. Now, Matt Corral out of Ole Miss, it's pretty mediocre numbers, honestly, in a passing league. This is you'd be excited about these stats in 2005.
And the kid's a junior.
2005, yeah. I don't know why he's coming. 4th year junior. He has another year if he wants to play. We noticed that trend a lot too. There's another quarterback in this year's draft who's also a junior. That the point is they have the year to develop, and I honestly think they should do it because not only will it help them with their stock, but it'll help them a lot in the long run.
It will.
Getting those reps done.
It will.
Getting better.
Right.
So this kid, 3,349 passing yards, 67.9 completion percentage, 20 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. In a passing era, dude, that doesn't stand out to me. I understand its own miss, but it's just it's pretty basic.
The kid's a runner too. I mean, he's pretty fast, but again, the way that we prefaced this segment is it doesn't matter if you can run. Yeah, you have people like Lamar Jackson, you have people like Mahomes. Those cats are fast. But at the end of the day, can you pass in the pocket? And Matt Corral does it better than Kenny Pickett does, I will say that.
He does. And that's what's disappointing for me about him is that he needs another year to develop that pocket passing skills because you can tell he's comfortable. When I see the highlights, it looks like he's a little more comfortable.
He's fine.
But he looks like he thinks he can outrun everyone, which will lead you to getting hurt and hurt quickly in the league.
We saw Kyler Murray do that in Arizona. His first couple of years starting out in the league, he loved to run it.
He's more athletic than all of these guys, and he still gets hurt.
He does.
It's just that's something they need to learn because that's a great way to not get playing time. You have to learn to pass it, and when it's time to pass it, you have to make those plays.
Right.
And you can't do it with these guys. No. So, but yeah, Matt Corral, he would be better served to wait, but he doesn't want to. So, good luck to him, man. All right. So
we'll see where he ends up.
Yeah. All right, Desmond Ritter. I will give this guy credit. It is that he does come from Cincinnati, but the team did win. Now, to be honest, their defense carried them throughout that season. They have 2 first-round cornerbacks in their team right now. But yeah, this guy.
Their Cincinnati was in the top. Their Cincinnati defense was in the top 10. They were right in 10. Now, if you want to consider the Air Force, if you want to consider the Air Force to be in the top 5, and top 5 of the defenses in the NCAA, then sure, you can add them, but they don't play anybody, so you can cross them out. So if you want to cross them out, technically Cincinnati's number 9.
Now Ritter, he's 6'4", 215 pounds. He's the prototypical quarterback that all those GMs fall in love with. Oh, he's tall. He's 6'4". He's big. But he's all right. Like his pass, again, these stats, man, they're nothing to be happy about. 3,344 passing yards, 65% completion percentage. That's me rounding up, and then it's 30 touchdowns and 8 interceptions.
8 interceptions.
Yes, it's just
8 interceptions.
It's college in 2021. Like let's be honest with these guys. Like they're not things to be happy about. Those stats would be amazing in 2005, 2007 when it wasn't a passing league as it is right now.
This also isn't 80s football where you would just run it and just take cracks at everybody.
The game, and last thing I'll talk about Riddler before we can go ahead and move on to another one is that their team made the college football playoffs. What that is to the novice is that the college teams get ranked 1, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those teams face off against each other, and then the winner from that matchup face each other for the national championship.
Right.
So Alabama has been the consistency of excellence in college football for over 10 years now. Nick Saban has won 6 national championships. 6. As a head coach in Alabama. His players constantly get drafted. He always has the best talent around him. Why I'm bringing this up is that it is the staple of seeing how a quarterback can play in the league if they play good against Alabama. Because they are the most pro-ready college team that you'll see in any college football team. Because I'll give you an example. Deshaun Watson. Now, he's having those legal trouble, but on the field, strictly on the field, when he was with Clemson, he would have his best games against Alabama.
Yeah.
He would have his best games, and he would shine, and he won one of those 2 national championships. The only reason they lost is because Alabama returned a kickoff for a touchdown.
Right.
And they lost by 7 points.
Right. But, so it came down to the wire.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he threw the game-winning touchdown pass against Alabama. So that's against the best competition in the most important game, and he didn't play this year, but if you guys could take a chance to look at his highlights, please do, because he's one of the great young quarterbacks that's getting forgotten about because rightfully so, he's in his own problems. But anyways, Riddler played against Alabama. And I got to be honest, man, I didn't see anything that special with him. He struggled. Cincinnati just seemed overwhelmed. He tried to throw the pass around, but it didn't seem like anything special to me. I don't know if you got the chance to watch that game. I was rooting for Cincinnati, but they ended up getting blown out. I'll look up the score right here, but let me know what you think.
Either way, when you have somebody, and this is just a general comment about college quarterbacks that are looking to be drafted in the NFL, college quarterbacks don't need to be transcendently great. They don't need to be completely fantastic in college. But if you look at people like Joe Burrow in college, if you look at people like Deshaun Watson in college, hell, even Trevor Lawrence in college, these guys are people that stay calm even under that pressure. You see these guys that are making plays that are pro-ready, that are making passes that are pro-ready. Okay? And it doesn't come down to just finding the open man and then passing it to that guy for the big play. Because that's not going to translate over to the NFL. You don't see these gaping holes in the deep safeties when the deep safeties just don't run.
Like 10 yards of separation.
Right. You don't see that kind of separation in the NFL. You just don't, because you have these elite defenders even in the worst team in the NFL. Even the Jets or the Jags. Yeah, or the Jaguars. You don't see those kinds of mistakes in the league. You just don't. If you made those kinds of mistakes in the league as a singular defender, you're out. You're done.
They cut you in practice. That's it. Same day,
That's it. That's it. So when you see these quarterbacks, these young quarterbacks that are looking to be drafted, the biggest things that you're looking for is their
composure.
Is their composure and their ability to read the defense. Their ability to read under pressure. Exactly. So that's what I have to say about young quarterbacks that are looking to be in the league. But let's move on to the last quarterback here.
Yeah, no. So going back to what I was saying, Cincinnati lost 27-6. Wasn't able to put up much of a fight against Alabama.
Right.
So, but speaking of Alabama, the one quarterback prospect that's looking good is their quarterback, Heisman Trophy winner, freshman quarterback Bryce Young. Now they lost the championship, but he's looking very promising. All right. So, but that won't be for at least 2 more years until he cuts out for the league.
Hopefully.
But he'll develop. He's certainly looking better than these bums, I'll be honest with you, dude. So last one is Malik Willis out of Liberty. I'll say that again. Out of Liberty University. Now the reason you hear Jose laughing here, if you're able to hear him, is because Liberty is not known for football. it's a great school. I can assume like it's a great school to go to. But as far as for college football and looking for an NFL quarterback, I don't know what people see in this guy, dude. Like I'm seeing like he could be the steal of the draft. I'm like, for what? For your scout team quarterback? Like I don't get it. Like it's oh my, like his passing yards. He threw less than 3,000 passing yards in this era.
Wow.
With 61.1 completion percentage, 27 touchdowns, but 12 interceptions. He has the most interceptions of these prospects, but I don't see anything that special, dude. I just see I'll be honest, it looks like high school tape for me. Yeah. It really does. Because he steps up into the pocket and his big plays, there's stuff that I saw on the sideline, dude. Like it doesn't seem like that, wow, look at him throw, or like, wow, look at that pocket presses, look at that move. Like, no. Like I don't get it. You guys are going to hear about them talking about, I'm not even going to talk about this last guy out of North Carolina, please. Last guy out of North Carolina was Mitchell Trubisky, and we all know how well his career turned out for him.
He's a second string quarterback for the Buffalo Bills.
Yes.
Right behind Josh Allen, but hey, just be careful. He might take his job next year. You never know that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Like, you guys, I promise you, when the draft starts, you're going to hear, oh, he's got all the potential in the world and he can do this and he can do that. But no. Trust me when I tell you these guys are bums.
Watch the highlights.
Watch the highlights. Watch who they play against, and you're going to be like, okay, they seem all right, which is okay. Like, they seem all right, but that's not what you want. That's not what you want to lead your league. And it's okay to take a year off, build your team, and then next year see which quarterback prospects come out.
We've seen this time and time again. Players that look good on paper, but once you start watching the tape, once you start watching the highlights, that's it.
Sorry about that, guys. That is my dog. She's getting a little impatient, but we are almost done here. But yeah, you just watch the highlights. Just watch the highlights, see how they do, see who they play against. And I'm telling you, if two regular guys like us can look at this and just see that, you guys can too. Like,
make some kind of determination as to who's good and who isn't. Big picture. Speaking big picture. Mm-hmm. Anybody could really see it if they understand the game well enough. So,
and it just takes time, honestly, to look at it and just try to understand what's happening. All right,
but that's all the time that we have for this episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I just want to give a big shout out. If you're watching this on YouTube and you're seeing our logo, I just wanted to give a big shout out to a really good friend of mine, Raina Richardson. She did a fantastic job making this logo. And I wanted to take time to really mention that because she put the time in. She is on a very tight schedule herself, but she put time aside to make sure that we had something like this, and we could not be more grateful. So, Raina, thank you so much. Another thing, too, if you want to follow our Instagram as well as our YouTube channel, please feel free to do that. It helps the channel out, and it helps the Instagram account out. As a whole, it helps our platform. We want to continue to do this for you guys, and if you decide to follow us, we'd really appreciate it. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time, guys.
Absolutely. We'll see you guys next week.
Take care.